I'm sitting at a black table, you got 5 other people playing with you. I'm looking at theirs. Yeah, I know. Right, that's what I'm afraid of. That's what I'm afraid of. Yeah, I've heard that. I think I did that. I did that. I put craps. I made a mistake of. I didn't know the guy was a fast runner. So they slipped the dice. Not even like some people do in the second. They slipped through and grabbed it. And so I wasn't paying attention. I walked the table and I chips down and grabbed it. Did that. It almost like the queen. And the guy was like, so it was again, you're never going to play this table.
I got some people that actually paid.
Yeah. I was going to never take it. Yeah. The dealer, one of the dealers, one of the, not the pit. What's up? On the side.
I know.
And then I did that.
I did not even know.
I hit, you know, and the guy next to me, it was a car that he needed.
You might put like $9.99 one time.
And he goes, nobody will ever get it.
You keep that separate.
Later, I realized. Yeah, well,
DJ
I got 5:30. Let's do the pledge. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Well, welcome everybody that's here. Sandy, can we get a roll call?
Yes. Mr. Parchman?
Here.
Mr. Campbell?
Here.
Ms. Lott? Here. Mr. Roach?
Here.
And Mr. Blackburn?
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum, sir.
All right, and Todd should be here. He's on his way. He's around a little bit.
Came in.
Oh, there. Okay. All right. Never mind. Here's your name tag if you want it. All right. Can we get approval of the minutes on 1.3 from the last meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All right, we got a motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. All right. First one is going to be 2.1, ordinance amending Title III, Chapter 31, City Officers. Sandy, do you want to say anything on that, or you do?
I'll let you.
Okay, so just a little bit of background here. We've got, since Walter has not, he was in his position for 20-something years, we really haven't had any changes that have had to been made. So with Walter leaving, there's been some adjustments that have had to been made, and we're having to review the entire human resources aspect of how the position should be done, all the details about it. So I just want to toss that over to Human Resources here, and can you explain kind of what's going on, what we're looking at, and from your perspective, what's happening?
Yeah, so I'm not used to being up here. Yeah, so we are currently in the process of reviewing and updating ordinance, particularly the administration article. This particular ordinance is kind of getting pushed ahead in the process because no matter who the candidate or what the candidate, where they're from, whether they're internal or external, we would have to know this information prior to hire and at the time of those conversations, right? So some of the things in this ordinance are if they have to have a residency requirement, those kinds of things. And so that's why this particular ordinance is getting kind of pushed ahead, because we need to fill the city administrator position sooner rather than later. It does take a lot of time to update these ordinance, review all the job descriptions, review those things. The last time this ordinance has been updated, I think, was 2002. And our former city administrator has been in the position for 23 years. And so it's time to kind of update things. We have a lot more positions than we did before. And so those are the things we're updating, but that is why this particular piece of the ordinance is getting pushed ahead by itself versus waiting for a month or 2 months for the other ordinances to get updated, the other portions of this ordinance to get updated.
Yeah, we wanted to bring these through as a package deal, so it was all done at once, but like she said, with Walter leaving, we've got to get a city administrator in place sooner than later. So we'll move forward with that one, and then the rest, we'll break the details down on that. The mayor has talked to the council members individually to kind of see how everybody feels on this, to get a consensus on what everybody thinks is appropriate, not appropriate, and what we feel that we should do moving forward. So there's been good communication, I feel like, about this between Human Resources, the council, and then the staff within the city. So want to compliment everybody on trying to do the right thing here and make sure that we are looking out for today and for in the future, not just to make a quick fix or something. It's to make sure we do something that's going to be solid for now and then going forward, and there could be adjustments as always needed, but that's what we're looking to do. Just a little note, like no other position right now in the city really requires residency, correct me if I'm wrong, besides the fire chief, and they have to be in the fire district, not in the city. So that was something we were kind of looking to be consistent as much as we can across the board. So that's really the only position that's required to live in the city at this point. So just want to throw that out there. Are there any other comments before we do a motion in a second and then take it for other questions, any comments anybody on the committee would like to make?
The only thing I was going to say for transparency purposes, one of the obviously contenders who's our current city administrator lives outside the city limits now. So this would obviously allow him the opportunity to stay where he is and potentially be the pick for the full-time city administrator. I just want to be transparent that we do have that going on right now.
Absolutely. Thanks, Todd. All right. If there's no more discussion from the committee, I'd like to get a motion.
And if I might.
Yeah, Mayor.
Yeah, prior to this being brought forward, as it was pointed out, we were in the process of going through a lot of the leadership team members, because they're at different parts of the ordinance, not really where they should be. So we're doing kind of a cleanup on it. But when this became a possible issue, I went to Grant on multiple locations to let him know that was going to be a question that I was going to share with the council to get their input on and get feedback from them. And his response has been and will continue to be, regardless, however the vote goes, he has said if he were to be offered a position and that was a requirement, he would make it work. So as we said, we had to extract the city administrator portion out to get this addressed, reviewed, and get the recommendations. So that's why I found it very helpful to get the feedback that I did from the council members. But I just want to make sure that there's no foregone conclusion. Nothing's been offered yet, but it's something we do have to look at. And as I said, Grant said if it remains a condition of the job offer or part of the ordinance, he will make it work if he's fortunate enough to be offered a position, so.
Well, thank you for clarifying that. Appreciate the extra points there. All right, motion?
Motion.
Second?
Got a motion and a second. Any additional comments from anybody on the committee?
I've seen these residency requirements most common in law enforcement. I think they're dated. They were typically created at a time when technology was far less than what it is. I think the city administrator can do many of the functions from halfway across the country, if the situation required it. So I'm fully supportive of this. I do have a question, though, with the 10-mile radius. It says it's encouraged. Just want to make sure that's indeed encouragement. We're not.
Yeah, so we are saying 10 miles encouraged. Obviously, we like them less than 10 miles. I think we can work with somebody. It's just to really give the city some flexibility in that. Candidates are few and far between for a lot of these positions, and how the housing market isn't really booming right now. And so we want to say encourage within 10 to give ourselves some flexibility. Obviously, if we're hiring an external candidate and they have to move to be within 10 miles anyway, we would say, hey, here's houses in O'Fallon, right? And really encourage them with O'Fallon. But I think encourage is just to offer that flexibility if we need it down the road.
Well, I think I was going to say let's go up to 30 so we can tap into the St. Louis market, but I think we're also competing with private sector, so it's really important that we're a little bit more laxed in this.
The only thing, I appreciate bringing that up, because reading it is encouraged. What would, if somebody were to get this position, I'm not talking about now, just whenever, what would stop them from saying, okay, I want to live 50 miles away? Because it's encouraged, there wouldn't be anything that would preclude them from moving later after they have the role, correct?
No, the encouraged, I believe, if I'm tracking it right, the encouraged was to move into the city limits, but if they don't, they cannot reside outside of the 10-mile radius.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that's, I mean, it doesn't read that it's mandatory for the job.
Kim?
Yeah, so oops, sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so just for full transparency, the ordinance reads, the proposed ordinance reads, if the city administrator is appointed from outside the city, the administrator is encouraged to establish residence within a 10-mile radius of the city's corporate limits so as to facilitate accessibility and prompt response. And then it goes on, in the event of emergency, et cetera. So our intentionality in writing it like this was so that if somebody doesn't live already within the city limits, that they would move to at least 10-mile radius of the city. So it wasn't to give us more, as Jim said, like into St. Louis or anything like that. It was more to say if St. Louis is or if O'Fallon is our boundary, then within a 10-mile radius of that. It wasn't to go beyond that. So the intentionality is that 10 miles outside of the city of O'Fallon would be our limit. And those are all things that we can actually control, like within the offer letter, within those conversations with candidates prior as well. And then this position is still, we're not changing the part of the ordinance where the mayor actually is the one who recommends this position, and then with council buy-in, correct, Mayor? So you can still control that.
And I understand what Todd's saying. It probably could be worded a little bit stronger. It's encouraged to move into the city of O'Fallon, but not outside of a 10-mile radius, I think was the spirit of that conversation. So
I think if that's the intent, that can be cleaned up just a little bit.
correct.
Yeah.
We need an amendment if anybody wanted to.
Well, I would make the motion that we amend it so that it's clear that it's encouraged to live within the city, but no further than 10 miles from the city limits.
I'll second that.
Okay.
I think that's reasonable.
So we've got two motions on the floor. Okay, other comments before we start voting? Anybody else on the council or the committee?
I would, again, I would go up to 30 miles. I think 10 is just too short. It doesn't, just because, it says 10 miles, that doesn't mean if something happened, you're at home. And again, we want to be able to tap into a larger talent market. So, and 30 miles is a reasonable commute too, so go ahead.
Can I say something real quick, Jessica? What Jim said here about like the flexibility, back when this was done in the early 2000s, there was not Zoom, there was not FaceTime, there was not even iPhones. So technology has kind of expanded. So as we all know, during COVID, we were able to work pretty remotely and pretty successfully. So whether it was your job or with the city, all that's changed. So that has adjusted to what somebody can do, because you could be on vacation and grab your computer and be able to communicate with anybody or on your phone very quickly. Jessica?
Thank you. I support removing the strict requirement to live in O'Fallon. I don't support, at this point, increasing that spectrum up to 30. I'm comfortable with what's being proposed. Just anybody lives within a 10-mile radius of the city. If down the road we realize that doesn't work for us and we need to expand in order to capture a larger talent pool, I'm definitely willing to consider it at that point. But I think it's a good, reasonable step to go from the more strict to now a 10-mile radius, which still keeps somebody very regional, in touch, visible. So maybe get back with me in a couple years.
Yeah, and I would just, I think too, the strictness of it, the flexibility, but I think there's something to be said that the person is still local, that their family are still local in that sense, that they have ties, in this area, not specifically the city, but I think it makes sense, particularly if there is some type of emergency or anything, that they are able to get here quickly. I know there is Zoom and all those things, but there is something to be said about needing to be on the ground in those cases.
The last thing I'll say, and just to kind of state my piece, but I want someone to be able to grocery shop without being hit up for a street light that's out. I think that there's advantages to being able to check out of work fully. So that's, again, another reason I think expanding it to 30 would be good. And why not do this now versus having to go through this again down the road?
Back and forth. All right, anybody else on the committee? Jim, you got anything down there?
I fully support the 10-mile radius. I can't imagine anything happening in the city of O'Fallon that requires the administrator to be on site quickly, immediately. I think that's perfectly reasonable given the communications issues that we have, or the capabilities that we have. I think the only thing that would argue against it, I think, is just strictly optics.
Mm-hmm. All right, thanks, Jim. Okay, nobody else on the committee? Jessica, you got your finger ready? Okay. Anybody on the council have comments? Yeah, Martha.
Okay. I've got a mic, thanks. I was just going to say, I think it's reasonable to recognize that there are members of our community that do want there to be a residency requirement. And so I think that this is a reasonable compromise. The 10-mile radius is a reasonable compromise to that. So I'll just add that feedback. And for me personally, Jim Blackburn, I would have an issue if somebody lived in St. Louis and was the city administrator here.
All right, thank you. Andrew?
Okay, well, I'm going to throw Jim some support on this. I've, worked for two municipalities, including O'Fallon, at one point in my life, and in both municipalities had, at some point or another, living requirements. I personally don't believe in them. I don't think to succeed in a job that you have to live in the town that you draw a paycheck from. I think everybody's should be warranted a separation of family and work, right? Like Jim said, I think being able to have a family life in a different community, there's value in that, especially in today's world. I think that, like Jim said, I don't see there being a situation where that role would have to be immediate. There would be time, and that's not guaranteeing that person wouldn't be out on vacation or in town anyway. So we don't know the timing of emergencies. Tornadoes in March, right? So I just feel like that if we're going to do it, this is the time to do it. I think we should expand it out. The world's different, especially post-pandemic, and also into the future. We're never going to know somebody's, limitations with housing, family, financials. I don't want to lose a good candidate for something as arbitrary as where they live, because I just don't see that being a big deal. And I've also talked to residents, and they're like, live wherever. So, I mean, you can go either way, but I do agree with Jim on this.
Any other council comments? Public? No, I'm not going to skip the public.
Carrie Schaefer, Ward 1. And I do hear and understand a lot of these perspectives, but this job is very specific. And the agenda item that we're talking about with the O'Fallon City Administrator residing outside of O'Fallon's wrong. Let's just be plain about that, because the language proposed, the note ordinance says, the city administrator is encouraged, which Mr. Roach brought up, to live within a 10-mile radius of the city's corporate limits. Encouraged, not required. And I'm glad you guys have addressed that and that you read that, because that's a very important distinction, and those who drafted it know it. In other words, they could live in Webster Groves, 30-mile radius. They could live in Carlisle. And as a non-resident, they would have no truly vested interest in our city other than receiving a well-endowed paycheck. So we do know their financials as a city administrator and benefits from those of us who do live here and are affected by everything you all do to and for us. It's interesting the language that's being deleted from the ordinance is exactly the reason this ordinance needs to remain in place as is. And the quote is, to create a feeling of greater personal responsibility and to exhibit to the citizenry a sense of concern for the welfare of the city administrator shall reside in the city during his or her tenure as a city administrator. I understand the reasoning behind the change, the belief that you can broaden the pool of well-qualified candidates for this vital position, but what's wrong with O'Fallon? That someone who has a position like that doesn't want to live here with us. There are plenty of properties in a wide price range available, but we know what we're going to be paying them, and they can afford to live here. If you don't want to live here, don't apply. It's that easy. And I think the current city administrator acting is doing a great job. He already said he'd be willing to do it. So I don't see a conflict there. And growing roots in our community is what fosters a true sense of commitment to it. And especially when you consider that the first outlined duty in the city's own document of the city administrator is, the city administrator shall be chief administrative officer of the city. All departments shall report to the city administrator. The city administrator shall be responsible to the mayor for the proper administration of all affairs of the city. Shouldn't they live here? Our mayor must live in the city to represent us. He doesn't get paid nearly what we're going to pay the city administrator. All of you, aldermen, must live in the city, not just the city, but the wards you represent. And you don't get paid even what the mayor gets paid. Each alderman's only 1/14 of a vote. And yet you have to live here. So why shouldn't the city administrator do the same? He has an incredible, or she has an incredible, and all-encompassing authority and not be required to live here? How can anyone reasonably believe that having the responsibility of all departments in our city should not also have the requirement that that one person, given that massive authority and responsibility, be a neighbor? Please, don't do this. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anybody else in the public? Tom, go ahead.
I wasn't going to speak up because I really don't, I see Jim's point, I see Todd's point, but I do have a constituent who wants the city administrator to live in the city limits, and that's right. I think it just makes sense for that to happen.
Thanks for your comment. Vern?
Vermiller, Ward 4. You know I'm going to throw my 2 cents in. If you, as pointed out, you got to live in the ward to be able to run for the ward. Okay, if you're going to run for this, if you're going to put your name in a hat to be a city administrator, you got qualifications you got to qualify for. So I don't see a big problem with why the guy can't live, or gal, or whatever, live in the city. It's not that big a deal. They're going to make decent money to be able to afford to buy a home. Quite frankly, do we know if Walter, when he moved out of Tennessee, whatever, was he required to live in the city? We don't know. Maybe you know. I don't know. It's, you know, whatever. But why is there a big problem with just
having the person live in the city. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. All right. Any other comments? All right, if not, we have 2 motions on the floor, so we have an amendment. And Todd, you want to restate kind of?
Yeah, so my amendment is to amend this so that it would say that it is encouraged that they live within the city limits, but at no point can they live further than 10 miles from the city limits.
Okay, and then we have the other motion.
Same, but bump it up to 30 days, or 30 miles, yeah.
So we have 2.
Well, you'd have to do-
Second, you had to do.
Oh, he
you
said,
didn't get a
okay, sorry,
second on
gotcha.
his.
Well, yeah, and you have to do the first one.
First one
and
first.
You have to vote.
Okay.
Then you could make an amendment if you wanted to.
Then you have
And
to get a
it sounds like
second.
there's more support towards the 10, so if the 30 is going to be officially shot down, I would like to support the 10 being lesser of the 2, you know.
That's what we're going to vote on first, and
Yes.
then we'll vote on the other one, which would then make the amendment effective.
Yes.
All right.
Okay, so this is, again, amending the ordinance as written to what Todd had said, encouraged to live in the city limits, but no further than 10 miles. So with that, Nathan Parchman,
Yes.
Jim Campbell,
Yes.
Jessica Lott,
Yes.
Todd Roach,
Yes.
Jim Blackburn.
No.
Okay, so then that amendment passes.
So you could make,
Yeah, it's still,
well, you could, well, and Jim has an opportunity to make his own amendment if he chooses.
If we have, no, we're good.
okay, so you withdraw.
I can see it for what it
anything.
is now.
Okay.
So, and I would just point out too, before we vote on the next one, I would, again, I like that it encourages, I would hope that the person would want to live in the community, but I also understand that there's other things at play, and so that's why I'm flexible on the 10. I would be completely okay if we said we wanted to leave it, but I know there's looking for some flexibility, so I'm compromising on there. But I think outside of that, no, you know, I know your point, but I just, it would be too far. All the points I made and the points that were raised about the wording here, the sense of community and all that, I think are very important.
Yeah, I do respect the citizens that spoke about this tonight. You keep going back to, everyone's calling it a high-pay job. Think about private sector that can pay them more, that can do a bigger relocation bonus, you know, that they could take that talent away from us. So, yeah.
Okay. So now we have to vote on the amendment that passed, correct?
Well,
So
the motion as amended.
passed. Right.
Yes.
So we'll vote on the motion as amended. Okay, Parchman,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Lott,
Yes.
Roach,
Yes.
Blackburn.
Yes.
Okay.
Only 25 minutes.
As amended.
With the amendment did pass, that will move on to council, and there still can be changes made to that, so this is not end all be all, it's just the first step. So that will move on, and there will be more votes to come. All right, next we have 2.2, which is motion to approve budget to actual report for the period ending June 30, 2025. Any comments or questions on this from anyone? Sandy, anything you want to add?
No, this is just our normal quarterly that needs to come through the committee and then council for approval.
So I move that we approve item 2.2.
Second?
Seconded.
Got a
Okay.
motion, a second, can I get a roll call?
Yes. Parchman?
Yes.
Campbell?
Yes.
Lott?
Yes.
Roach?
Yes.
Blackburn?
Yes.
Okay. So that got approved.
All right. 3.1, waste hauler discussion.
We need to go get
Oh,
Grant.
we want to get him to discuss
Uh-huh.
it. Okay.
Yep, yep, yep.
20-second timeout.
Well, and I can do, while he may add to it rather than wait, I'll add what I know about this. So we did our waste hauler contract back in 2018. We went out for bids. At that time, Waste Management was selected. It was, they were the lowest bidder. Our current contract, it was a 3-year contract, it expires 2026. However, it does have a provision to renew that contract for 2 additional years. So if we do nothing, we can extend it. Otherwise, we would have to go out for a new contractor bid to go out for new bidders. Attached, and here comes Grant, and he can add a few things, but with this, we've had the same contract. There would just be a small increase in the rate per the contract. And let me pull that up. And on these pages, again, everything as is would remain as far as all of the services they provide. And here you'll see the increase for year 4. It would go from $24.73 to $25.93 a month. So again, it's $1.23. And then if we go for the 2-year, then it does go to $27.22. Again, a very small increase. I'll let you do any more. So anyways, so we also.
Sorry, they were supposed to come get me.
I know. Well, it was a big discussion. So then we also, we have had the performance report, 99%, you said?
Yeah, so when you think about the number of houses, and we do get complaints, obviously, and complaints that go right to Waste Management. Cameron DeWitt is our liaison between the city and Waste Management, and so he tracks these throughout the year. So when you have that many services every week, 2 carts minimum, all in all, the level of service is pretty good. And we survey some of the other cities around us. Most cities around O'Fallon are serviced by Republic. Used to be Alliance, they formed together. If you look at the previous quotes from 2022 that I did include in the agenda, that was the other big waste hauler that was close on comparative rates. What was not included is when they gave us the draft contract is they do not do billing services. So the city of O'Fallon would be required to do their billing as well, which is different than what Waste Management does. They have their own call centers, they have their own billing services. Our staff would have to take payment, issue bills, and then we would write just one large check to Republic each week. And so, or each month. Given that and the state of inflation over the last couple of years, I believe if we go out for bids, we will only see increased rates. So most of the single stream recycling services are exported to China, and they are not accepting those right now. And so that will increase rates on the recycling side. And so as we did in the previous contract with them, they're always 3 years with a provision to extend for 2 additional years. And so staff would recommend tonight to continue that agreement for 2 more years, as noted in the existing contract. But I did want to give the council and committee a chance to have this discussion, because if we do want to go out for bids, we would have to notify Waste Management rather soon, because you back into the end date of the contract, and if other carriers were the chosen provider, there's a lot of logistics. We'd have to go and pick up 27, not personally, obviously, but we'd have to help coordinate, pick up about 27 to 28,000 96-gallon carts, deliver new ones with the new company, and so it does take a number of months. So where we're here tonight is to ask if there is a strong will to notify Waste Management that we do not wish to extend for 2 more years, and we choose to go out for bids.
Thanks for the clarification there. Anything from the committee, for, against, thoughts?
I would just say I don't think it would make sense, given all the reasons Grant just mentioned, to do that. I think we'll probably see in 2 years increased rates with it, and it doesn't make sense to potentially get that now.
I agree with keeping the 2-year extension.
Jim?
I don't think right now would be the time to do this, given everything you just revealed. What I didn't love was we had the ice storm last winter, and when they didn't pick up, there was no credit to any resident's account because of the force majeure clause. So probably something we're going to have to fight that battle down the road from what you just shared with me, because we're probably going to have to hire some billing folks if we would switch to Republic. But It's something I really want to keep on the radar. It's a resident that approached me on that last year.
Absolutely. We're in close contact with all of our peers around the area, and Republic did the same thing. I will let you guys know when the tornado hit last spring, I think we requested, it was almost 30, 40-yard roll-offs, and Waste Management provided that free of charge for us. So there are some benefits to kind of have those relationships that we've had with them.
It's good to know. Thank you for that.
Yeah, so, I mean, we had complaints, then we had the list that goes on, and it showed 99.98% accuracy, so that's a great jump from where it was a few years ago. And I was like, why not just send it out for an RFP just because? Well, that would cancel the 2-year extension, and then they would rebid it out. So if we do that, the 2-year extension's off the table, so that's something else that, through discussions that made sense to me. So just extending this instead of taking it back out to what we would more than likely expect to go up makes a lot of sense right now with the small increase. So any more questions before we move on?
I just have a comment. I want to thank the staff for providing this performance report. Historically, I think this is the second or third time since I've been on council that we've gone through this process, and this is the most information we've received at the time we're being asked to make the decision than we've had before. And I very much appreciate having access, not just numbers, but the context, the way it was laid out. It painted a picture. So thank you for that.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Jessica. All right. And that's just discussion. There's no vote to be had there. It's more of just kind of get an idea. Next discussion topic. Yeah, Ross.
Yeah, I just want to add one statement.
Yeah, go ahead.
We have gotten in the past, and I've talked to you, in fact, I brought it up before, where we have gotten the monthly, how many complaints, how many resolved, or whatever. I'd like to get that back started again so that we can see, because when residents say, you know, this is the 18th time this has happened this week, we can say, no, it's not, or call and file it so that we can get accurate stats. So if we can work that out, where that's a monthly thing for us, I'd appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Ross. Anybody else before we move? Yeah, go ahead.
I've also seen before in the past people just kind of discussing if, because we're locked into the contract with the city, does it allow city residents to, what stops them from going and getting their own trash service on their own from another provider? Does that stop them, or can they still use Waste Management or somebody else?
Yeah, so all residential properties are required to use the city's contracted waste hauler. Commercial properties can go find their own. The given behind that, it's probably been 25, 30 years that ordinance has been in place. And so what happens when you have multiple residential waste haulers is, or you don't require waste hauling services, is you have a lot of trash that sits out. Dump trucks, as Jeff Taylor can probably go into detail, are terrible on roads. They kill them, especially alleyways. And so the more large trash trucks we can reduce on our roads by providing one service that does it, it saves our roads a lot of years of maintenance. But the big thing is inconsistency. So when people call in and say, my neighbor's couch or trash is not picked up, we have one provider to go to and say, you know, let's get it cleaned up.
Thanks for clarifying that. Andrea? Nope. Martha?
I noticed in this contract that it had the schools listed, and they don't use Waste Management anymore. District 90 doesn't anyway. I just wanted to make sure that the rate, that won't affect the rate since it's in the original contract.
Right, so every time we do this, and again, I touched base with all three school districts, all three public school districts, about a month ago and kind of asked them if they had any changes if we did go out to bid. These waste haulers provide those quotes as an option. The schools are not required to use that, but as we were going out for bids, we went ahead and put all their services, seeing what pricing they would get. Some took it, some did not.
All right. Any other comments from the council? Public? All right. We will move on to 3.2, the discussion of the preliminary proposal of the 2025 tax levy. Sandy?
Okay, thank you.
Didn't have any notes on that.
That's okay. So this, again, it is very preliminary. This is something that we do annually for the numbers that they need at the county, like in March. So This is the annual tax levy that we provide to St. Clair County, and it needs to be to them by the last Tuesday of December. These numbers that are presented now, again, are strictly estimates, and they are subject to change. They change daily. We'll be reviewing this again in November, and you'll see these numbers with our EAV. All of that will be changed. However, what doesn't change, unless there's discussion by council, is the amount that we need. A levy is based on the dollar amount that a city needs or is requesting. It's not based on the rate, and that rate backs into that EAV number, which again is what is provided by the county. So this year, just as a preliminary to give you an idea, so last year's final rate setting EAV, let me pull this up here, was over $1 billion, $1,020 million. The estimate we just received from the county is approximately $1,010 million. The multiplier is added to that number. As you know, every 4 years the county comes and they assess the homes. It is a job of the assessor to make sure that all homes are equal in value. Therefore, this last year, everyone saw there was almost a 12% increase for your multiplier. This year, the county is estimating about 9.4, 9.5%. O'Fallon covers both O'Fallon Township as well as Caseyville. In order to get my multiplier number, I do combine the two to give us an estimate. And then I also include the Board of Review. They have petitions where if you want to appeal your taxes, it goes to the Board of Review, so that always backs out. It's been averaging anywhere from $1.8 to $2.2 million that the Board of Review will allow for that. So right now, our estimated EAV is about $1,019 million. Out of that, 18% of that, of our residents are disabled vets, and it involves about $183 million. So $183 million is taken out of our EAV numbers. It is included in that $1 billion number. But we just show that 18% of our residential EAV is made up of the disabled vet exemption. And this number again changes. Anyone who is applying, unless they're a permanent disabled, have to each year put in their request. So again, this number also changes. So when we look at our numbers that we're looking for, the other caveat I need to tell you, so with IMRF, you'll see that line. So in 2024, the state gave, in order to make cities whole, those communities that were affected by the disabled vet was a pilot program. The city received approximately $270,000 to make us whole for the loss that the city would have seen with the disabled vets. It was a 5-year plan. It lasted 1 year. We were waiting for the state to put it back in their budget last year. Didn't happen. From what we understand, it's not going to happen. So what we want to do is to be able to give that back to the residents. So last year we abated $50,000 of that $270,000. So for the next 5 years, we'll abate $50,000. Since we do know it's not going to come back at this present time, rather than waiting until March to say we're going to abate it, what I did in our numbers, I just went ahead and reduced the amount that we need for IMRF. So we really would need $425,000 for IMRF. Because we're going to abate $50,000, we are going to request from the county $375,000. So therefore, it will reduce our residents' taxes by that $50,000. Now, IMRF will be made whole because that money was put in the general fund. So that $50,000 then will be added to the IMRF tax amount to get us to the full $425,000. Our tax levy also supports our fire protection as well as our EMS. And again, tax levy only does for our public safety and our pensions. So when looking at fire protection, you'll see that we are requesting an additional $122,000. So this request is for 1.7 million. And a lot of that is due to the price of our equipment. Our chief, at his committee meeting, we talked about how a new ladder truck is going to be $2.1 million. Apparatus and equipment is going through the roof. And we need to make sure that we are funding the fire protection. The only revenues they get in is from our tax levy and then what they get from the district. Also the fire pension, they are currently funded at approximately 200%. But we do need to have what's considered an employee contribution. So we're funding that at $30,000. Police pension, again, we are currently, last valuation was at 78% funded. By 2040, we have to be, I believe, 100% or 90% funded. So we need to continue to fund that. Social Security, this is something last year I was able to drop, and the year before a little bit because of our reserve. We were able to have, we had excess money from Social Security, so I reduced it. Well, it's now our balance had decreased enough that I do need to fund it again. And again, EMS this year, we're looking at about a $100,000 increase. Again, staffing levels, equipment, so it does need to be funded. So it shows an increase of approximately $310,000 for this levy year. The library, again, who the board is provide the number to the city levies for the library, and so their board has requested an additional $50,000. So that is what you will see with those numbers. So overall, we're looking at a 4.93% increase in the amount of reserve or amount of funds that are needed for this tax year levy. So overall, right now, we're looking at a 0.7499 for your rate compared to a 0.7142. However, that rate will change as we get more estimated numbers. So that is the levy. And again, it's very preliminary because it will indeed change. So, you know, we talk a little bit about the fire protection and EMS. Tax levies are really their only resources. And so as we go forward, we need to start looking at how can we continue to fund it? You know, is through property tax the only way we want to do it? We have additional funding sources we can look at, but I just wanted to put that out there as we begin our budget, as we begin future years. You know, we had the discussion of the grocery tax that sunsets in a few years. Maybe that's an option. I'm just putting a suggestion out there, but that may be something that council may want to look at rather than depending upon our taxes to support our services. So.
Thanks, Sandy. Any other comments?
Well, I was just going to ask Sandy, you mentioned the fire protection, and since it's a district and a city department in one, is the rate is that the same for that goes into the city rate as it is for those that are in the fire protection district?
Yeah,
but not
we
in the
try
city?
to get them as close as we can. So when, and I'm actually involved in doing the fire levy, so we do try to keep so that one isn't paying more than the other. And so as we look at the levies, we try to equalize so that the district isn't paying more, they're paying less. I mean, there's maybe a few areas that we're trying to get it, but yeah, we try to equalize it as much as we can.
And so if, in theory, in the future, we designated part of our sales tax or some other collection, could that portion from the city offset the city residents' taxes, but since those who aren't in the city may have to pay a higher rate, than what?
Correct, yeah. Again, because we can take that in consideration, because again, just because their tax rate, we can look at the dollar amount and try to figure out, well, they're responsible for X% of the budget because their EAV makes up 33%. So that's kind of how we do the calculation, is what their EAV makes up, and then what percentage they need to pay for the budget.
Gotcha. So as we go along, it is possible to offset for our residents from that if we so chose?
I think that we could possibly do that, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Todd. Anybody else? Council? Public? All right. It's just a discussion item, so there is no vote here.
Right.
Anything else you want to add?
Yeah, so again, we'll have it at the November meeting, Finance Committee meeting. We'll have more numbers, and at that we'll kind of vote, because then at the December meeting, we will talk about 12-1. We'll have the first reading for the levy, and then on 12-15, we'll have the second reading. And it'll be important that, we have that in that order, because then it has to go to the county by that last Tuesday of the month.
And just for the public, when is the last date that percentage of the levy could change? Because that changes even after our vote.
It changes until I get the final rate setting, like at the end of March.
Okay, so I just want everybody to know, like, even though we vote on this, there still could be some adjustments.
Right, but it's only, because again, we're asking for the dollar amount.
Right.
We don't adjust the rate, so that's all based on the tax rolls.
Right.
So we're asking for the dollar
Yeah,
amount.
the dollar amount's going to stay the same, but the rate there could adjust, but that's out of our control. Really.
Based
we
on
have no
right
control.
now, this will be an increase in the tax rate.
At this moment, based
Yeah,
on the
sure, I know.
estimates that we got.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, but we'll find out closer to the end of the year, or end of the fiscal year.
Right.
All right, thank you. No more comments on that. We'll move over to 3.3, the Bill O'Fallon Trust Project recommendation for
Yep.
2027.
So I'll just do a quick one on this one. We've been talking about the Bill O'Fallon Trust, couple at our committee of the whole, we talked about, what projects the Bill O'Fallon Trust Fund has funded. This conversation is coming about because as we start getting closer to our budget year, the Bill O'Fallon Trust Fund was set up with the council in mind, looking at unfunded projects, and so that the council could have some input of, we have the funds available, we set that quarter-cent sales tax up specifically to fund these capital projects that are not funded. And so as we get closer to the budget year, we wanted to get council's input to start thinking about what projects do we want to do this next fiscal year. So again, just what we have done throughout the years, how we've funded the different projects through the Bill O'Fallon Trust Fund. The biggie is, again, how are they selected? And the projects are normally listed in the 5-year CIP, and these are based on department head recommendations. And if you recall, last month we voted on the CIP, and you'll see where some are not funded. It tells you what your funding source is. And normally the CIP projects, we know over the 5 years how we're going to get them funded, but there are projects that need to be funded, and that's where this could possibly come in handy. We look for projects over $100,000, and just keep in mind, just because those funds are there, they don't have to be expended each year. You can save them for larger projects. We have lots of large projects that are going to be coming up. If you keep spending it every year, the allocated amount, then any big projects come up, you may have more restrictions on. So those we kind of did last year. So this represents those projects. I pulled all these from the 5-year CIP that was just voted on, approved earlier, and these were listed as unidentified funding sources. And you can see, again, the field house, parking lot phase 5. Again, you can read through all of these. You see there are a lot of large projects. I mean, we have fire, the heavy rescue apparatus. We have the public works. There's a shared path, sewer lift stations, and in parks. One of the things, I kind of ask our department heads, are there other projects that you think would be good as well? You know, that maybe there's something you'd like to highlight. And again, some of the parks projects, the community education center would be a project that, you know, they may like to see. You know, some of the questions are, why are there a lot of park projects, right? Because a lot of times that's all we in the past, you'll see 99% of them have been park projects, but that's because they're expensive and there's no dedicated funding source. So that's why a lot of times the Bill O'Fallon Trust Fund is used for those projects. Our public work projects normally have a dedicated funding source through Prop S, MFT. So those sometimes don't need to have that extra source. Some of the projects we do have, you know, we'll be looking at the Bonita Bridge replacement. We talk about the field house, the downtown streetscape, you know, and then we could do the smaller projects, or as I said, we could save it for the larger ones. So really what we're looking for is we want the council's input, you know, what projects do you wish to be evaluated, you know, and you can let, you know, Nathan know, Grant, myself know, so that we can be looking at these projects so we can include them in the FY27 budget discussion.
Thanks, Sandy. So it was brought to my attention as the chair that a lot of people felt like their voices weren't being heard and they were getting the topics or the projects brought before them by the city staff, and they didn't get to have a voice in it. So city staff and new mayor really changed that up a little bit, and they want to make sure that the council has an opportunity to voice their opinion on that. So before the meeting here, we just kind of talked. So we just want to open it up to ideas that we have that may not be represented, or if you feel strongly about one, we just really want to get everyone's feedback as to what projects that we want to look at. And then based on funding sources that may or may not be in place for this already, or if it's fire, maybe it's already got a funding source for somewhere else instead of that. That's where Parks and Rec kind of is a catch-all for a lot of different projects that are visible. So those are the ones that kind of come to the front to head. So that's one of the reasons for that. But I'm just opening it up right now. If you have any ideas, suggestions, or anything like that, this is your opportunity. If you don't want to mention it in public or talk behind the scenes, you can talk to Sandy, myself, or the mayor, or anybody, and then we can discuss that. But floor's open. So if anybody has any on the committee, Jessica.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate the context with which all of this was presented. It's like we've known as a council that we don't have to utilize the money, but it's always been presented in a way that was like, well, here's projects that should be funded. And so this more long-term picture of we could spend money, and that's okay because they're projects that have been identified by residents as being wanted or needed. Having it in the context of, or we could wait because we know we have a Bonita Bridge has been very helpful. A question I have, and it's very specific, but a year ago it's what I would have wanted to spend money on. I've been advocating for 7 years for a tourism type website app. We've created such an economic engine that brings 1.2 to 1.5 million people a year to O'Fallon, and we haven't been great at giving them an easy way to shop local. I've talked to everybody on the council. There's overwhelming support for this. I don't think it's a $100,000 project, so I don't know if it would fit here, but is it on the radar to be? I remember it being in the CIP. Is it going to be budgeted in what year?
Yeah, so thanks for bringing that up. So Bill O'Fallon Trust Fund's mainly for capital projects, so the website's not capital, it's not, physical, but since you brought it up, we'll talk about it, because we did have a phone call last week to kind of scope what that would cost. So we don't have hard costs yet, and we're doing this because there is a DCEO grant that would help us pay for a tourism website. We have a lot of great websites, great pieces, but bringing it all together. But there's also a personnel component we're talking about. Somebody that can be dedicated.
Amen.
Can be a liaison.
Showing my cards a bit here.
The staff and I, we've worked a long time to build relationships, but there still has to be that person that can contact our hotels and our other tourism generated, whether that's the Recplex or St. Clair Bowl, even the gas stations. I think that's the one thing I hear the most is the gas station saying, you had a huge tournament in town and nobody told us. And my response is kind of, well, that's every weekend we have a big tournament. We were so busy, but somebody that can have that dedicated time to work on this kind of stuff that we create so much revenue and pay a lot of our budget out of. So the long story to quick answer is probably wouldn't be something we'd have.
We're getting there, just not via the Build O'Fallon Fund.
Yeah.
That's fair enough, thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Jessica. Thanks, Grant. Other topics?
The only
Todd?
the only thing I would mention, and first I want to say thank you to the mayor and Grant and Jeff for meeting with the county about the Veneta. And I understand the what's come out of it, but there was one recommendation there that we could potentially implement, which is the ability to put a right turn lane in, which would ease some of the traffic flow. And so I would encourage we put money aside for, and I know it's not on here, and I don't think it's part of any of our capital process now, but that would be to at least help improve that intersection based on the recommendation.
Thanks, Todd. This is exactly what we want to have, open discussion here on those topics. Anybody else on the committee have anything? Council? Somebody's got to have something.
I do. This is
Andrew?
for Jeff. Looking at this, the shared use path, the $2 million that you need, is that to offset what we have for the grant? Like that would be the rest that we would need?
That would be the estimate to offset it. We're still in design phase, so really it's going to take some time to determine what the true cost will be, but I believe it has a 4-year clause in it, so it's going to take every bit of that to go through the approval process with the state.
All right. Martha?
This is not necessarily for the next fiscal year, but I think it's food for thought for consideration. If we do end up building a new library, the library, and I was assuming at this point the facility would be 100% funded by property taxes. And as you mentioned when we were discussing the levy, we don't have access to 18% of our tax base for that. So I would be in favor of using a portion of the Build O'Fallon Trust funds to kind of offset the inaccessibility to a certain percentage of the property tax revenue.
Thank you. Did you have Mike? Okay, go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, I mean, I like what Martha said, but we've also been talking a lot lately, going back just a little bit, about St. Ellen Mine Park and putting a park on that side of town. I'm all right with deferring for a year, since we don't have anything like super planned and in the hopper for the immediate future. But I also see on the list parks in the northwest and northeast. So I would like those three new parks, St. Ellen Mine, and then 2 up north, because there aren't any parks for the folks up north to be considered. So I'm okay with deferring for a year.
Thank you. Any other comments? If not, I appreciate the staff. I feel like they're here in, day out. So when they bring suggestions, we do have visionaries that are on the council, but it's also nice to hear from the staff of what they see, what the public's asking them. So it's good if we just all work together and have different ideas and kind of mesh those together. So I do appreciate everybody's comments. Are there others before we would move on? And then
No, just to compliment everything that you've done with the tourism site and app. She's just pulled together a lot of data, and she's been a force of energy behind that. And I mean that very complimentary of gathering support for that. Because you're right, it's overdue.
Thanks, Jim. All right. Anything else y'all want to add on that, or?
No, I mean, again, if you have any suggestions or ideas as we begin the budget process, next month we can put it on the agenda again if there's anything, because then we'll start adding things to the budget.
Okay.
In the projects that were mentioned tonight, we can do our best before the kind of next session to come up with rough estimates on what that would really cost. I know like the parks in the north side and the west side, part of that would be property acquisition cost. And so we'll, ideas are fun, and sometimes we ruin the parade by saying, well, this is what it costs, but it's an important part of the conversation.
Yeah. Some of these topics we could maybe build a room, or, there's not, $1 million doesn't go as far, like that's kind of somewhere in that ballpark is about how much we have each year. So it doesn't go as far as you'd want it to unless you start dipping into what we were hoping to save for those future large projects, in 2030, 2035 and stuff like that. So, just, it's good to have discussions, and then we can do this, but it's nice to have this available where we can do those things that before we could not do. So thanks to the staff and everybody for looking into this, and the council for the topics. So is there anything the public would like to add to this before I jump topics? Okay. All right, we'll move on to just information items, treasurer's report.
Info only?
Info only. Anybody on the committee? Council? Public? Take a look at that. 3.5 quarterly investments.
Info only?
Same thing, info? All right. And then one other thing, it had been brought to us before we go to public comments that at the IML, we had several staff and council members that did attend. There's a 3.5-page write-up basically of what everybody took away from that, breaks it down, kind of gives everybody a recap of what the IML provided. And just looking at this and going to IML in the past, this is just a teeny tiny synopsis of all the benefits that, it will be, go ahead.
We'll attach it to the Finance Committee minutes, so it'll have its own document with it.
So it's just kind of a recap of what everybody presented that they saw and learned at the meeting. So that will be presented, like they said, as an attachment with the minutes. So look for that coming out. But that's something that if it's asked and we can provide something for the public, we want to make sure we do that. So thank you for everybody getting that together. And then last but not least, 4.1, public comments. So if anybody has public comments, come on up, state your name, what ward you're in or business you're with, and fire away. Going once, going twice. All right, if no comments, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second?
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.
We will have
adjourned.
community development meets at 6:35.
I know, it doesn't, it's the way the road is.
Krista.
We'll call the Community Development Committee meeting to order. Welcome. This is the Community Development Committee. We generally meet the second and fourth Mondays of each month. My name is Jessica Lotz, and I'm the elected representative from Ward 2. I'm also the chairperson for this meeting. Leading tonight with us are several city staff members. We have Greg Anderson, who is our Director of Community Development. We have Grant Litteken, our interim city administrator. We have Abigail Klein, who's our Community Development Coordinator. And tonight we have Chad Truen, who's our Chief Building Official. Welcome to this side. Looking over our agenda, we have several items that we'll review as part of second readings, then we'll vote on 3 new items. Any votes taken tonight are advisory only. Regardless of the vote, all items move on to the full City Council for consideration. Anyone wishing to make comments will have several opportunities to do so. Once we start an agenda item, I'll ask the committee, and then the council, and then the public if they have any comments they'd like to make on that agenda item. There is also an opportunity at the end of the meeting for final public comments, and those can be about the agenda items or not. Public comments are welcomed. Anyone wishing to speak has 5 minutes to tell us what they'd like. By ordinance, please just state your name and if you are a resident. Please address comments to the council and not to individual staff members or other members of the public. And our goal is always to answer questions that are asked of us, but sometimes we get asked really specific questions that we would like to investigate more before we provide answers to those. So we're happy to take those questions and provide information if we're not able to tonight. And with that, we will get a roll call. Greg. Hi,
Thank you.
Abby, sorry.
Campbell,
Yes.
Mylart,
Here.
Parchman,
Here.
Rosenberg,
Present.
Roach,
Here.
Lotz.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. So we will move on to item 1.3, approval of the minutes. You'll notice that these are from September 22nd. We have had a meeting since then, but we did not have quorum at that meeting. So our latest minutes to be approved are from the 22nd. Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Alrighty, our first 3 items appear on the agenda as second readings. These have been already reviewed by this committee, then they went to the full council where they received approval, and our ordinance requires that they come back to this committee, and then they will go back to the full council for a final reading next week. So we will start with item 2.1. Is there any questions or no changes made since it approved by council? Any questions on 2.1? Nope. Same with 2.2. Any questions on 2.2? Council? Public? All right, 2.3. This is also a second reading. It is regarding large-scale solar farms. It's the second reading with no changes from what was approved at the full council meeting. But we have some new members in the audience. So for those who might be new to the solar farm discussion, the state of Illinois gives the county the authority to permit these, and per the governor's 2023 January law, counties must approve solar farms. Municipalities, we are not in charge of whether they can go in or not. All we can do is take actions to create regulations regarding how they're installed. And so this ordinance on 2.3 strives to do that. We're hoping to provide consistency to the process from the city side of things, and this helps developers better understand what they can expect. Any questions on 2.3? Nope, council? Public? All righty, so now we are moving on to an item that does require council approval. This is 2.4. Greg? Abby? Sorry, I don't know who's presenting.
This is an ordinance amending Ordinance 623, zoning districts of the city of O'Fallon. This is for the development known as Aloha Pools, which will be located at 105 Auto Court. Just to give some brief background information, you may recall that earlier this summer, Aloha Pools did come to the city. They received a business registration and an occupancy permit for properties on Auto Court located at 187 and 141. You may have seen pools propped up at those properties if you were driving by on I-64. Since then, Brad Cook of Aloha Pools has decided that he would like to move locations. He would like to have an outdoor display to display pools, and that location that he was previously at was not necessarily conducive to that, being next door to a stormwater treatment plant, sewer treatment plant. So he wanted to move, and so we are taking him through the planned use process to receive approval to have an outdoor display for pools. Aloha Pools does offer a variety of pools and spas, installation, service, repair, and water care, as well as pool maintenance equipment. The property is currently zoned B1 Business District. You'll see that the property to the north is B1P. That is equipment share, and they went through that planned use process as well last year. Looking at the future land use map, all of these properties that are depicted as that dark red, those are listed as regional commercial. Regional commercial is appropriate for outdoor displays as well as heavy traffic and light generators, which Aloha Pools would be appropriate for this. Looking at traffic, circulation, and parking, as you may be aware, the building is already out there, parking is already out there, so there will be an efficient flow of traffic onto and throughout the site. This site will have over 40 parking spaces, which does comply with city code and their requirement. Signage was not included in this proposal. It does not necessarily need to be included, and moving forward, all signage will be subject to the regulations of the city code, so once they do decide on their signage and they submit a sign permit application, they must abide by city code. Looking at conformity with city ordinances, this would promote the stabilization and expansion of the existing economic base. This development would utilize a vacant building and continue to enhance the auto mall development in surrounding areas. We are working with the current brokers, and we're looking to get another tenant in one of the buildings. So after this, it is very highly likely that we'll be down to 2 buildings vacant. Looking at conformity with zoning ordinance, the O'Fallon zoning has designated this as an area for businesses. The surrounding properties are business uses and are similar in character. Equipment share to the north also has an outdoor display and a vinyl fence. The existing building is similar and will not detract from many of the structures surrounding the property. So with that said, staff does recommend approval of the planned use with the following conditions. A 6-foot vinyl fence would be required for screening on the front and the side portions of the outdoor display areas. This fence will be set behind landscaped areas along frontage road. They are looking to do a fence on the western side of the building. That would be the side that is along Watson's, not along Auto Court. That would not impede traffic or parking. And when they do decide to put up a fence and outdoor display, we would work with the petitioners to make sure that it does meet all of the area bulk regulations and city code. In addition, no signage, artwork, banners, advertisements, or any other objects shall be mounted, affixed, or displayed on or above the 6-foot vinyl fence at any time. Display pools that are going to be out at the site, outside of the building, will not be visible above the fence line or the exterior of the site. So any pools that are going to be utilized for outdoor display must be shielded by the vinyl fence. Additionally, landscape areas along Highway 50 frontage will contain a combination of shrubs, vegetation to visually break up the screening elements. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Before we get into discussion, I need a motion.
So moved. Second.
All righty. Thank you, Greg, for that. Open it up to the committee for discussion. So the question before us is not them moving. The question before us is authorizing the display of outdoor pools.
Correct. By right, per our zoning code, that use is allowed to go into that building, so they can move forward with their business registration, with their occupancy permit, and they can operate their business out of there. They would just like to, in the summer months when it gets nicer, they would like to have a vinyl fence and pools displayed out there as well.
Correct. Yes, sir.
So I don't know if this is a valid concern or not, but I'm going to ask the question. I know in high wind storms, these big pools, I don't know how heavy they are. What's the likelihood? How do they secure them? Can we put any restrictions in there about that they have to be secured to
We don't answer this, but we have our building official over here.
Yeah, so we can absolutely require them to submit structural design for how they would anchor those to the property. In my personal opinion, I think like a smaller scale, like smaller depth of each pool, and have it probably laid into the asphalt itself would be beneficial, but nonetheless, we can put whatever restrictions we want on them.
That was my concern.
I have a question. Initially, when they were displayed, they were like a 45-degree angle? How do they plan on displaying them but be below the 6-foot fence? Do we know that?
They will not be allowed to be propped up as they were at the former site. So they would have to be displayed as a pool would typically be installed at your home. It cannot be propped up so it goes over the fence line.
Okay.
Other questions from the committee? Yes.
Yeah, and not necessarily related to this, but it was brought up as far as like landscaping needs along the fence where they were talking about with Highway 50. How do we, like let's say that they come in and do landscaping, this would be true for any business, and it dies or they choose to cut it down, whatever. How do we, is there a mechanism that we look at that and enforce it ongoing?
Yeah, so there's provisions in our code. It's very specific on what type of trees and shrubbery and vegetation you can plant. I will lead into, I hope that you come to the Parks and Environment Committee next month in November, and Andrew will be going over the urban forestry plan that was recently submitted, because it includes a lot of that on how do we follow up to make sure the correct trees and the correct type of vegetation are planted, staying out of sidewalks and that kind of thing. So
it was a great segue.
You set me up.
Good job. Way to tee that up.
Awesome, thank you.
Any other questions from the committee? Any questions from the council? Mr. Carney?
Yes, do you have a display on where how the fencing will be around that building?
They did submit a preliminary site plan that's included in the board doc item in the application. However, whenever they do go out to actually install, it's not like I said, it's a very preliminary plan right now. So when they do actually finalize their plans for the display, they would work with staff to make sure that it meets all of the bulk regulations.
What I'm saying is, the fence isn't going to be along Highway 50. It's going to be on that, what is that, Auto Road or whatever it's called?
No, sir, it will not be along the auto court side. It will be on the side of the building, the west side of the building that faces Watson's.
Other questions from the council? Any question?
I was just going to
Yes.
say, I don't see if there is one attached, I'm not seeing it in board docs.
So this was just previously discussed. It was not a part of the site plan itself, but to answer your question, Mr. Carney, it's going to be from the property, from the building line back. It's not going to go forward onto 50. And it will, the little overhang area where the columns are for like a display area for a car, they are going to utilize that as the outdoor display area as well.
Any questions from the public?
Vermaware, Ward 3. So you're telling me you're gonna have a 6-foot-high vinyl fence, and they can't exceed that height with their pool, correct? Well, most of these pools are deeper than 6 foot, like 10, maybe 12. So will they have to dig out a pot inside their area to put the pool down so it doesn't go above the 6-foot level?
However the petitioners seek to put up their pool park or their show area, that's up to them. However, it has been a consistent condition for any business in B1 or B2 that any outdoor displays do not go over the fence line. So we are going to remain consistent with all of those conditions that we have treated other businesses as well. So you are correct, yes. If they want to do a pool that has a depth of 12 feet, they would have to install it to where it's under the fence line.
Dig a hole and put it in. Okay. This is the property adjacent across the street from where Goodwill is at, is that correct? And they'll be utilizing the front of the building for most of their displays?
No, the front of the building and on Auto Court will be parking. It'll be a retail component.
Okay, and then the backside is where they're going to have.
Correct.
Okay, so they can't tip them up against the building?
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, seeing none, I'll close comments and we will take a vote on item 2.4. Roll call.
Campbell? Mylart?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, so sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, I thought I heard you. Mylart?
Yes.
Parchman?
Yes.
Rosenberg?
Affirmative.
Roach?
Yes.
Lots.
Yes. All righty, that item will go on to full council. We are now on to agenda item 2.5, which is a International Building Code update. Get excited. We don't see these very often, so when we do, we make sure to educate on what exactly is involved in this. So we're fortunate enough to have our chief building official, Chad Troon, with us, and this will be his presentation. So take it away.
All right, thank you. So this is 2.5, ordinance adopting the International Family of Codes for the 2021 cycle, as well as the Illinois Energy Conservation Code, the 2020 National Electrical Code, the Illinois Plumbing Code, and the Illinois ADA Code. So a quick summary, the Building and Inspections Division of the Community Development Department is proposing the adoption of the 21 edition of the ICC Family of Codes. We use these codes to regulate building, fire, and property maintenance provisions for structures within the municipality. Currently, the city regulates building construction and occupancy programs using the 2018 international codes, along with various adopted amendments. And typically, we try to amend our codes every 6 years, with our last amendment occurring pretty much at about this time in November of 2020, which, as you all remember, was COVID. So prior to the adoption of codes, staff takes the time to review all proposed I-codes to look for significant changes that could affect stakeholders. At this time, we have reviewed the differences between the 18 and the 21 family of codes, and the good thing is that due to the short time frame between the code cycles, many of the changes that have occurred have been minimal. Staff has also engaged the Building Code Review Committee, who are in favor of all the proposed amendments and the code updates. So one of the primary goals of our department is to be in line with neighboring municipalities regarding codes and code adoptions. This provides for consistency between jurisdictions, as well as provides for better communication between inspectors, contractors, and citizens. Municipalities that have moved to the 21 I-codes effective this year include Collinsville, Edwardsville, Fairview, Charleston, Alton, and Wood River. Municipalities that will be adopting the codes, the 2021 codes this year or early 2026 include Litchfield, Muscuda, Herron, Greenville, Valmeyer, Troy, Swansea, O'Fallon, Jerseyville, and Madison County. So many of the changes from the 18 to the 21 codes focused on clarification for the end user, as well as allowing for advancements for materials and methods of construction. The following codes have very minor updates aside from administrative language in the first chapter. That includes the building, fire, mechanical, existing building, fuel gas, swimming pool and spa code, and the National Electrical Code. The following codes are state mandated. We can't really amend anything out of them. We can only make them more restrictive, which we have not chosen to do at this time, and that includes the Illinois Energy Code, the Illinois Plumbing Code, and the Illinois ADA. So as with any code update, there are a few areas where we think some amendments would be needed. Some of these consist of including a provision in the International Residential Code for work to be completed in a neat and workmanlike manner. In that same code, requires certain types of elevated sunrooms to be designed by a registered design professional. In both the International Residential Code and the National Electrical Code, remove ground fault circuit protection for larger electrical appliances such as ovens, dryers, and air conditioners. And the primary reason for that is that technology has not quite caught up yet with the GFCI, and we still have nuisance tripping issues. And also, we want to expand definitions in the Property Maintenance Code to ensure code enforcement can now proactively address nuisance recreational vehicles. This includes off-highway vehicles that are being junked out, and I know this is surprising, but off-highway vehicles that are being junked out in driveways, as well as campers that are being dismantled in front and side yards. So some areas of the codes were not changed from previous amendments. This includes, we're still keeping the provision for, under the residential code for residential sprinkler systems. If you would like to install one, you can, but we're not mandating that you do. And then under the fire code, under the retroactive installation of fire sprinklers in A2 use groups, we're still leaving that amended out of the code as well. So the purpose of the codes is to provide minimum requirements to safeguard the public safety, health, and general welfare through affordability, structural strength, means of egress facilities, stability, sanitation, light and ventilation, energy conservation, and safety to life and property from fire and other hazards attributed to the built environment. Staff believes that moving to these proposed codes is effective for the following reasons. It ensures greater consistency with surrounding municipalities, provides better collaboration between inspectors, contractors, and citizens from city to city, ensures buildings continue to be more resilient and energy efficient. We also maintain our municipal ISO ratings at a good level by utilizing more current codes, and also ensures inspectors can receive continuing education on current codes. So at this time, staff recommends the adoption of the proposed 2021 family of I-codes to be effective January 1st, 2026.
Thank you for that very thorough review. All right, before we can open it up for discussion, I need a motion on 2.5.
So moved. Second.
All righty. Are there any questions from the committee? Mr. Roach.
I know the answer, but I thought maybe it'd be helpful if you elaborated why we are 3 years behind. Like they've adopted they do it every 3 years, 2024. We purposely are behind. If you could explain why we do that.
So actually, normally we would go every 6 years, right? But for us and our region, since we don't have a statewide building code, as you saw earlier, I referenced a lot of municipalities that are currently on the 21, and then a lot of municipalities that are also going to be moving to the 21. Collectively, as a region, we're all trying to get on the same code cycle. And so Edwardsville was one of the first municipalities to move to the 21 code, and that was after the Amazon warehouse incident. And then Collinsville adopted it, and subsequently we're all kind of starting to fall in that direction as well. So going into the next code cycles, 6 years from now, 5 or 6 years from now, hopefully by that time, our region as a whole will continue to move forward with the exact same code adoptions. So,
thank you.
Other questions from the committee? Jim? No? Questions from the council? Any questions from the public? All right, seeing none, I'll close comments, and we will have a roll call on item 2.5.
Campbell,
Yes.
Mylart,
Yes.
Parchman,
Yes.
Rosenberg,
Affirmative?
Roach,
Yes.
Lotz.
Yes. All right, the last item requiring council action tonight is 2.6, an ordinance regulating development in the floodplain. Chad's going to cover that. I do want to give kind of a brief alderman view of this since I've been involved with it. This is an update to our ordinance regulating developments in floodplain areas. So right now in O'Fallon, we have homes in floodplains. Our ultimate goal is to get homes out of the floodplain, get as many out of the floodplain as possible. And later tonight during Public Works, there is a project that the council will consider that will hopefully accomplish that in several years. But in the meantime, in order for these homes in the floodplain to be eligible to purchase flood insurance, the city participates in a program called NFIP. And because we participate in NFIP, there are certain actions that we as a city must take. Essentially, any work done on any of these houses for any reason, whether it's due to storm damage, man-made damage, or even improvements like installing windows or flooring, the city must track those expenses. And right now, when the value of those improvements or expenses reaches 50% of the value of the home, there's some pretty big significant decisions that would have to be made. So FEMA requires that those homes that reach that 50% threshold be brought into compliance. And you do that one of three ways. You either raise the home, you move the home, or you demolish the home. And none of those are really attractive options. So right now, the expenses accumulate indefinitely. So expenses that were made today stay on my home for the life of the home. And that increases the likelihood that homes in the floodplain could reach that 50% threshold. So city staff, we've been meeting with residents several times over the last few months, and during one of those meetings, a resident asked if it was possible to put a time frame on that, how those expenses accumulate. So instead of allowing them to accumulate indefinitely, is there a time period where after that time period, certain expenses start to roll off? And we thought this was a reasonable request, and as it turns out, the state implemented a change that allows for a 10-year accumulation period and then roll off after that. So this ordinance that Chad's going to review, the most notable change is the inclusion of this 10-year rolling period. So again, ultimately, our goal is to take steps to get as many homes as possible out of the floodplain. That's going to take time. The project, permitting, licensing, FEMA maps, that will take several years to see a final resolution. So in the meantime, what we'd like to do is change the ordinance so that the expenses fall off the tab on a rolling 10-year schedule rather than stay associated with the house forever, which is how the current ordinance acts. So with that, I'm going to ask Chad to go over the specifics of that.
Yeah, so I was just mentioning to Greg and Grant, that's pretty much my
That was the
presentation.
specifics of the program.
I mean, aside, there is one extra thing in there, and that is that the state recently reviewed, shortly after the storm event, the state reviewed our ordinance, and the last time that we had updated our ordinance was in 2003, November of 2003. So the state came in and said, hey, your ordinance is extremely out of date. At this time, you guys really, they didn't say that we had to, but they strongly encouraged us to update our ordinance. So piggybacking off Ms. Lotz, that she hit the nail on the head with essentially why we're here tonight. And that is, you know, to convert our old ordinance into a more updated ordinance that has been in place since 2022. It's been approved by FEMA. It's been approved by the state of Illinois. We've already sent it out for review by both of them, and they came back and said, yes, that's what you guys need to do, so.
All right.
That's it.
We should tag team more often.
Tag team,
So before we open it up for discussion, I need a motion for 2.6.
So moved. Second.
All righty, questions from the committee? Questions from the council? Mr. Kearney?
I have one. This doesn't take the home out of the floodplain in any way, shape, or it just
That is accurate.
extended.
Yeah, so it's just a change in how this program is administered, and that's why we had FEMA and Aaron Conley, who's the administrator for the state NFIP program, look these over. And so it does not raise anything out of the floodplain. Hopefully, Jeff will talk about that in this next committee meeting here as soon as we wrap up this one. But it just changes kind of that 10-year rolling period. Now, Chairman Lotz made a statement about lifting the house. There are times if you go to like the Grafton area along the river, they are on stilts, you know, along the seaboard. In this area, it's more of filling in basements. Neither, we believe, are reasonable options. But that is truly what the program says would be required.
So what we're trying to do with the ordinance is decrease the likelihood that the residents will reach that 50% threshold. And while we're working towards a solution that will likely get most of the homes out of the floodplain. Other questions from the council? Questions from the public? Yes, sir. If you'll please tell us your name and if you're a resident.
My name is Rod Thompson. I am a resident of O'Fallon. And I read the notes that were sent out before the meeting, and it said the ordinance 3210, which was adopted by City Council on November 3rd, 2003, currently identifies building protection requirements as substantial improvement and substantial damage measured cumulatively equal to or exceeding 50%, et cetera, et cetera. I still have an issue understanding why carpeting on the third floor of my home is a building protection, qualifies under this building protection requirement, and that should be excluded. Similarly, if my wife decides she wants new cupboards put in, why that expense would be included in a building protection requirement and why there is not an exclusion for that, because it has nothing to do with flood damage. Whether my wife wants a different vanity cover, and the earlier comment was, well, she can't have marble, she has to go with plywood, or some other statement like that from the state, which made no sense to me at all. My wife and I should have the ability to decide what goes on in our home, and we just don't see why carpet or cabinetry or the island that we have for our kitchen requirements would be included as a building protection requirement. I guess you could extend why the hail damage that we had could be considered based on the wording here, because it's the roofing is a building protection requirement, although it has nothing to do with flooding. But I guess those costs would be included, but I have no idea why these other costs have to be included. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I agree. I don't think that new cabinets should necessarily be considered as substantial damage. We administer the program as participants, but we don't get to make or decide the rules. So as part of our enforcing what the state and the federal government has determined as eligible expenses, it's what we have to do. But I understand. I feel for you. Yes, sir.
Dave Pfeiffer, 801 Deer Creek Road. I'm one of the 15 homes that's in your floodplain, that were put in your floodplain by the mismanagement of stormwater downstream. And when we redid the maps, now we're 7 feet below. So they raised the base flood elevation by 7 feet. That put us in the floodplain, caused by city mismanagement of stormwater upstream. So you put us in this floodplain. We were not here originally. Every one of those homes was out. So you put us in, and now we've got to suffer the consequences of that. So when we were hit 50%, what happens? We have to raise our home? It's physically impossible to raise these homes, elevate these homes. And if you can give me a program that can do that, please. What is the city's plan when we hit 50%? What is the city's plan when we hit 50%? I'm asking.
Our plan is to get you out of the floodplain.
Let's say we get there before then. What happens if we hit 50%, let's say next week? What happens?
So according to the federal government, there's 3 options. Lift the home, move the home. I understand what you're saying.
Impossible.
I understand what you're saying.
Okay.
Yep. I understand what you're saying.
Keep going. Number 2.
Move the home.
Okay. Again.
Or demolish the home.
Or demolish the home. So you've got a plan here that demolishes and devalues our home.
We mentioned before, this national floodplain insurance was not crafted by us. We're simply the administrators.
Okay? That's fine.
And we
You
don't
put
make
us
the
in the floodplain, though.
we do not make floodplain maps neither. But if you would like to stick around for the next meeting.
Oh, I'll be here. Absolutely.
I think you will be an active participant, as always, when it comes to this property.
But right now, I'm in the floodplain, and you caused that.
I did not cause that.
The city of O'Fallon caused that.
Sure.
Yes. Okay, so now we're at 50%. What happens? We get those 3 options. So you've totally destroyed our homes. And also, this does carry over for 10 years. If you have the option of changing that, my proposal is that we get waived from this program. This was stated that we don't have to be in this. The state said it suggested that we do this, that we didn't have to. Highly suggested. Let's not do it until we get out of the floodplain.
It's my understanding that we have decided to participate in the program as a way for homeowners who are in the floodplain to get flood insurance. And if they can't get flood insurance, they likely can't get a mortgage on the house. So we see it as a community benefit to participate in this federal program as a way to make the homes insurable that are currently in the floodplain.
That's great. This program was implemented in 2003, right? So it's been out there for 20 years. You have not participated. I've bought flood insurance since you changed the flood maps. Have I been doing that illegally? Why was I allowed to get flood insurance?
I don't know the answer to that question. I don't know the answer to that question.
That's not true. We were still allowed to get flood insurance.
People, I understand what you're saying.
Okay, so if we were not allowed to get flood insurance because you didn't work participating, why was I allowed to? So that statement's not true.
I don't think you are not allowed to purchase any property insurance or flood insurance on your property.
I wasn't
There's-
allowed to?
There is nothing in our code that prohibits you from acquiring flood insurance.
Right, so this is FEMA-backed flood insurance program. So you're telling me, though, that I shouldn't have been allowed to do that because you
That
were
is
participating in the program?
not what Chairman Lotz
That's
asked you.
what I understand was said.
Did you have any thoughts on, so is it your perception that this should not be passed?
Not be passed and not be implemented on our 15 homes.
Understood.
We were put in the floodplain, and this should not be passed at all.
If this doesn't get passed and your updates or repairs or whatever reaches the 50%, whether it's 10 years or 10 years in the past, in accumulation, then you have those three options: move, destroy, or.
And what happens if I don't comply?
If we don't
What, if I hit 50% next week, what are you gonna do?
What we're talking about now helps you. If you don't want it to be passed.
I don't want it to be
I'm not
passed.
saying
No,
that
this doesn't
your
help me.
decision-
Oh, no.
It does help you.
How?
Because it rolls over. If those repairs were 12 years ago, they don't count anymore.
The
So
plan
you
from
take-
10 to 50, from infinity to 10 years helps us, but being in the program does not.
We
And
don't
that's
have-
what I want to
we
do.
don't
We're in the program regardless of this, what we do today.
You just talked about the state said you don't have to update it.
We're trying to
No,
update it to help you.
no, we need to update it.
No, update it because you haven't implemented it for 20 years.
Okay,
The
and-
state didn't care, FEMA didn't care, and the city didn't care for 20 years.
It's not accurate,
Well, then why did Chad come knocking on my door this year then?
because there was a tornado.
Oh, then there hasn't been
And we
damage
received
before?
messaging
And that's the
from-
first tornado that's been here?
This is in my
Since
recent history.
Why tornado, though? I've had hail
The
damage
National
before. We put
Floodplain
on
Insurance
roofs.
Program asks us to do so.
It's
We
not
are
specific
required.
to a tornado.
Thank you, sir, for your time.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
On that.
Chair, with all due respect, this is the conversation that we had in
I
both
understand.
meetings with
Yep, do you have
residents.
additional,
Be
do you
out of
have,
this program.
I understand what you're saying. Do you have other additional comments regarding what's on the agenda for this
No, thank
number?
you for not listening.
Sure. Are there any, yes, please.
I'm RJ Everhart. I live between Rod and Dave. I love O'Fallon. My thing is that if I would have known about this when I moved here and I was stationed here 14 years ago, I never would have bought my house in there. And what I'm saying is the city needs to be more transparent with what is in a floodplain when you purchase a house and what ordinances applied to that house that is for sale.
That's a great point, and we've talked about that internally and have set up a process internally. So when applications, I don't want to speak out of, applications come in for occupancy permits due to a move, that is flagged and we have information to provide the next homeowners.
Yeah,
That's an
just
excellent point.
what I wanted to say.
Yeah. We appreciate your comments because a lot of what you said previously drove us to do that. Thank you. Other comments from the public? All right, I will close the comment section, and we have a motion on the floor for 2.6. Roll call, please.
Campbell,
Yes.
Mylart,
Yes.
Parchman.
Yes.
Rosenberg.
Affirmative.
Roach,
Yes.
Lots.
Yes. All right, that recommendation goes to the full council for consideration in 1 week. So with that, that ends all of our items requiring council action. So I will move on to item 4.1, public comments. Is there anybody that would like to make public comments before the committee? All right, seeing none, I will close public comments. There being no other business to conduct, I'll,
So moved.
thank you.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned.
Public Works at 7:17.
Why are you sick?
Sure you don't want to stay, Todd?
You know.
No. We got to go get a book.
Yeah.
All right, it's 7:17. We'll go ahead and call the Public Works meeting to order. Roll call, Jeff?
Rosenberg.
Present.
Phony.
Here.
Vorse. Vorse.
Oh, here.
Sorry. Carney.
Here.
Hudson.
Here.
Ford.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Outstanding, thank you, sir. First thing on the agenda is 1.2, approval of the minutes.
Make a motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Minutes passed. First thing requiring council action will be 2.1. Jeff, please.
Yes, 2.1 is a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute an engineering agreement with Millennia Professional Services of Illinois, LTD, for the Deer Creek subdivision drainage improvements in the amount of $238,700. So, as you recall, we had hired Millennia previously to do a drainage study for this area, which is the Deer Creek subdivision. This is the portion of Deer Creek just west of Seven Hills Road. The primary purpose of the study was to analyze the culvert that drains Ingle Creek under Seven Hills Road. The study is attached to the board doc item. The recommendation that came out of the study was to replace the culvert under Seven Hills with a single span bridge structure, and then also do additional mitigation for erosion, both upstream and downstream of that bridge, and then further upstream install what are called rock riffles to help mitigate erosion in those locations also. Again, that's within the study that's attached. What this agreement would do would allow Millennia to design these improvements, which would include topographic survey, plans, specifications, structural plans, which they're hiring a subconsultant to handle, and then finally to submit a letter of map amendment to the FEMA to essentially try to remove as many of these homes from the floodplain as possible. Preliminary studies found that we can remove 14 of the 15 homes. Only the one closest to Seven Hills would remain just because of how low it is on the site. It's important that we go through this process with FEMA prior to doing the project, so it would be a conditional letter of map revision so that we would know that once we move forward with the project, it would actually be able to remove them. So that's part of this agreement also. With that, I would recommend approval of this agreement.
Thank you, sir. Before we have any discussion, I need a motion.
Make a motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Now that we have that, is there anybody on the committee that has any questions or concerns? Anybody, the rest of the council?
I have a question, Ross. Jeff, am I remembering correctly when we had our last meeting with the residents, the engineers mentioned potentially adding another gabion basket, like just west of the last home? Would they consider that in this whole proposal here? Maybe some additional things that weren't in the original study?
Yes, as they move forward through this design, we will look at other alternatives, whether it be increasing the number of riffles that were shown on the plan, or like you had mentioned, potentially another gabion basket similar to the structure that is further upstream could be added also. So that'll be worked through as we go through design process.
Anybody else from the council? Public?
Dave Pfeiffer, 801 Deer Creek Road, one of the 15 homes. Thank you all for finally getting a bridge and at least attacking this problem. Unfortunately, that bridge is going to cause problems downstream for our other neighbors, but hopefully that'll get us at least attack the floodplain problem. It only took 30 years to do this, so I really appreciate that we finally have really done this. But what it doesn't do, it doesn't address the two other issues of the increased runoff from the upstream developments, which I've complained about for 20 years to you all about, is that the increased runoff, increased base flood elevations, and the increased erosion. This thing does not address those because it doesn't address Engle Creek. It's called the Deer Creek. It's an Engle Creek watershed, and that whole Engle Creek needs to be assessed to try to reduce the water, because we're still going to have that problem with erosion with the amount of water coming through our subdivision. And also, I'd like to see something that stabilizes and protects the creek stream banks, which also protects your sewers, your sewer line, without destroying all our vegetation across there. We should be able to put riprap in our stream bank, just like we have. We've put almost 1,000 tons of rock along our stream. And if we can do it, you should be able to figure out how to do this without destroying our property, our trees. And so I would like to have, the bridge is a great idea, but we still need to address the problem of erosion and the stormwater increased runoff, and I think those studies still need to be addressed.
Appreciate your comments. Sir, did you have a comment? Nope.
Do we know how much damage this is gonna cause to our private property yet? Do we know that?
Until we finalize the design, we will not know the exact locations where these will be placed. I mean, the bridge itself, you're really going to impact the properties directly adjacent to it. If we implement the rock riffles upstream, we're going to have to place them strategically, probably in between homes where you could access them between them to get to perform the work. Again, as we work through the design, we'll better define those and communicate that with those residents at that time.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Anybody else? We've got a motion, we've got a second. Take a roll call, please.
Rosenberg.
Affirmative.
Foney.
Yes.
Vorse.
Yes.
Carney.
Yes.
Hudson.
Yes.
Ford.
Yes.
All right, we'll move forward to city council meeting.
Very well. 2.2, please.
2.2 is a resolution authorizing the mayor to sign an IDOT local agency agreement for the resurfacing of West State Street from Highway 50 to Douglas Avenue and Ober-Neiferman Road from Carriageway Lane to West State Street. So this is a project that has been in design. Design's complete. We are ready to put it out to bid. We were able to secure federal surface transportation program funds to pay for a portion of that. So what this agreement does is establish how much of these funds are federal and how much of it is local. So right now, we were planning on utilizing $586,000 of federal funds, with the remaining $723,000 coming from our local motor fuel tax funds. So we have to enter into this agreement, which would then allow IDOT to put this project on the letting. Right now, we are planning for a January letting, which will allow for the resurfacing to occur next summer. I did attach an exhibit that shows the exact limits of this. So again, State Street from Highway 50 to the railroad, and then up over Neiferman around the curve. But then we're also going to be resurfacing the roundabout at Porter Simmons at the same time. So again, this really just sets the funding agreement in place. IDOT will administer this contract, and as the work is completed, they bill us for our portion of it. So I'd recommend approval of the agreement.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to take a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions or concerns from the committee?
On this resurfacing, I know in the, what is it, the 2050 plan or whatever it is, they were talking about changing the way that State Street or
The
whatever.
spur?
Yeah.
Yeah, the spur, thank you, goes on to Highway 50. Is this?
We're not planning anything with that at this moment. I mean, it's in the Forward 50 plan. It's going to be a lot more development driven, and there's been no movement on this at this time. Anyone who turns off a Highway 50 and drives on that road knows how bad a shape it is in, and knows that it needs to be repaired prior to then. So,
Anybody else on the committee? Council? Nathan?
Be done in sections, or is that going to be knocked down, or is there one lane going, or is that just all shut down at once?
So it'll be done one lane at a time. So they'll just have to restrict traffic. There'll never be a point in time it's completely closed, except potentially the roundabout. We'd probably have to work it similar to when we resurfaced the roundabout at Seven Hills and State Street. There were some
intermittent closures that need to occur during that.
And I assume we'll make as much, it's advance notification
Yep.
in every way that we can.
Yeah, if there are closures required, we will definitely convey that via press release and set up detour plans.
Anybody else from the council? Public? We have a motion, we have a second. Take a roll call, please.
Phony.
Yes.
Vorse.
Yes.
Carney.
Yes.
Hudson.
Yes.
Ford.
Yes.
Rosenberg.
Affirmative.
All right, this will move forward also.
Thank you, sir. And 2.3, when you get a minute.
2.3 is a resolution authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute an engineering services agreement with Horner and Schifrin, Inc. for the Highway 50 at Green Mountain Road project and for the use of motor fuel tax funds in the amount of $297,435. So similar to last project I spoke about, this is another project we were able to receive federal funding for through the Congestion Mitigation and Air Quality Grant. With those grant programs, you have to take a look at existing traffic that is currently on roadways and determine improvements that would essentially mitigate, lessen the congestion. So getting vehicles through an intersection quicker, for example, would greatly improve that, which is what this project is proposing. We would be adding an additional westbound lane on Highway 50 from east of Green Mountain Road all the way west to the spur, as we just referenced at State Street. There is an exhibit attached to this also that shows the project limits, some of the improvements. So in addition to another lane, there'll also be some additions of sidewalks and a biking shoulder in some areas also. And again, with this being congestion mitigation, it's all based on current traffic volume. So there was comments made that, oh, it's being done for this hotel in the corner. That is not the case. You can't put out projected traffic. It has to be existing traffic volumes. And anyone who travels this at certain times of the day can attest to how far that westbound traffic does back up. I've seen it back to at least the Dollar General site. This weekend, it was even further, probably because IDOT was doing work on 64, but is it in need of it currently? And what this agreement will do will begin the engineering process to design the plans that would allow it to move forward to go to construction. So I'd recommend approval of the agreement.
Thank you, sir. I will make the motion. I need a second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any conversation, questions, concerns from the committee?
I have a question. So where the credit union is where it's going to turn into 2 lanes, and where the eastbound lanes go from 2 lanes to 1 lane. That's the way it's gone. And they're at the corner of Green Mountain and Highway 50. Is that a turning lane you've got in there, or the major?
The additional lane that's added,
Right.
heading westbound, the additional lane, it would be a through right lane. So you could either go straight through, continue down Highway 50, or turn right to go north up Green Mountain.
Any other questions from the committee? From the council?
So on here, is there being sidewalks added on the southbound side as well? Is that what those red lines are?
So there is filling gaps on sidewalk on the south side where they currently don't exist, yes.
Okay, and then will there be from like Scott Credit Union work on, and I know the new development will obviously have sidewalks, but there's I think a gap of one house or so there. Is that filling that in as well?
So within our bike trail master plan, that section of Highway 50 east of Greenmount was identified as a bike corridor, potentially for a separate shared use trail. So the plan would be to install that as a separate project in the future. So
Okay.
it wouldn't be put in now.
So you would, and there's no sense then in putting a sidewalk if you're gonna
Correct.
just rip it out anyways. Okay.
Yes.
But it would at least extend the sidewalk, absent just that one vacant lot then, all the way up it looks. So that would be, is that correct then on the south side?
On the south side of Highway
On the south
50?
side, we would have connecting sidewalks then.
That's, the open space is O2B kids, so there is.
Oh,
a-
I'm sorry, yeah.
That's just
So there's, so it does, okay.
older aerial.
Yep, thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else from the council? From the public? We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Force.
Yes.
Carney.
Yes.
Hudson.
Yes.
Ford.
Yes.
Rosenberg.
Affirmative?
Foney.
Yes.
All right, that will move forward also.
Right, that takes care of items needing council action. We have no other business scheduled. This is time for public comments. I'd like to say, I've attended city council meetings in several different municipalities, and I have never heard anybody that gets as much as free money, grants and stuff that we get. I mean, it's amazing, and I am, as a taxpayer, am appreciative. So thank you, Jeff, and everybody else in the city staff that works those issues. It's very much appreciated.
Talking about me?
Are there any other public comments? Seeing none, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion?
We have a motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Have a good evening, everybody.